Nuremberg. We just watched it, and for the movie that it is, I don't feel like it's being talked about enough.
When you say that, do you mean the movie itself or the performances or the content?
I feel like all of it is extremely heavy. Let me get into what it's about, and we can dive in from there. What Nuremberg is about is obviously the Nuremberg trials are world famous as setting a precedent for war crimes and how to prosecute them so they can not reoccur. This story centers around World War II psychiatrist, that is evaluating the Nazi leadership before the Nuremberg trials, trying to make sure they're not going to commit suicide, that they can go through the trial. This particular psychiatrist becomes increasingly...
What's his name?
His name is Douglas Kelly. He is becoming obsessed with understanding evil and ends up forming a bond with Hermann Goering, who was the second in command for the Nazis in Germany. So he was the highest ranking leader that they were able to bring to trial at the Nuremberg trial.
He was the Reich Marshal.
Yes. So that's what this movie is about, that particular angle, the psychiatrist, how he dealt with Hermann Goering, his obsession with Hermann Goering, and how that played out through the trials. My thoughts on the story was how incredibly powerful it was. The most powerful point they don't get to the end because it takes that long to build up to see how vulnerable we are to that type of thing, that Nazi Germany type of situation.
Well, don't get to that just yet, because that's how it ends. Mm-hmm. So just let's save that for last, because I want to get into Russell Crowe's performance because he brought like a particular type of charm to this character. Now, I don't know if the guy in real life, he would have had to be a charismatic person for the force that they wielded in this Nazi influence that they had. And so, I mean, I think Russell Crowe captures that.
I think he did a phenomenal job. He made you sympathize with one of the most evil men ever considered in history. I think he even made you doubt Goering's culpability in that moment, because they don't technically establish his complicity into the very end, and then the British attorney is the one who establishes it. Yes. So it's almost on a whim that they get Goering connected to or take ownership of all the atrocities that take place. Yeah. One of the things that they talk about and the psychiatrist talks about is how smart and how cunning and how manipulative, narcissistic that Goering is. And that's one of the reasons he got to where he was. He's, like you said, he's got to have charisma to, command an army and a people and to hold that position. So he's got charisma, he's got some charm, he's got some manipulation. He's also, it was just incredibly, I think it was one of Russell Crowe's best performances. I really do.
Yeah, I mean, Crowe always, he shows up to work. So, I mean, he brings an element to a role that only Russell Crowe can bring to the role. So I think he aged perfectly into this role to play Hermann Goering. Really worked on his German accent. Yeah, very believable in it. What was the actors that playing the psychiatrist? What was his name?
Rami Malek.
Rami Malek. That's the Egyptian actor.
Yes.
Yeah. He really brought a dynamic to the role too, with how he became. He made it believable how he became slowly enamored by Goering.
Yeah, to the point where he's meeting with his family and passing letters, unbeknownst to
his authorities.
His authorities.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he did become enamored by Goering. It's kind of hard to, because this thing has been so long ago now. Mm-hmm. Not really, but
it's not fresh in anyone's mind.
Yeah, but I think it's interesting that it was a Vanderbilt that wrote and directed this movie.
Yeah.
And the Vanderbilts play a certain role in the American tapestry and the American.
Yeah. They helped build the America we have today.
Yeah, they help. They are definitely
the industries.
The industries, and I mean Cornelius Vanderbilt moved from shipping to railroads. Mm-hmm. They built Grand Central Station, and I think it makes a statement that this Vanderbilt, what's his name?
James Vanderbilt.
James Vanderbilt. His great grandfather is the great grandson of Cornelius Vanderbilt. Mm. So it's like a direct lineage. I think he's trying to make a statement by making a movie like this.
Yeah.
Because they draw a lot of parallels that may have been forgotten on how this particular type of charisma can take hold of a nation before it's too late. Mm-hmm. And I think they went to great pains to draw those comparisons.
Yeah. I think all of the actors took this very seriously and were at points not acting. I think we kind of discussed this where, especially when they were in the courtroom and going through testimony and watching some of the videos that they showed from the concentration camps. Because up to that point, there was still doubt on whether any of that was real.
Yeah, I kind of noticed that too, where the actors that were acting, it seemed like, because I think they were reading some of the direct transcripts from the trial.
Yeah.
But it just seems like they weren't acting anymore.
Yeah, like it's real easy to slip into exactly what that felt and feeling it for real.
Yeah, that the visceral reaction of knowing just how powerful and, that moment in time was. I think those actors really felt it. So I'm thinking this movie is going to get more than just Oscar buzz.
I really hope so. It's really impactful to me because I see a lot of relevance to what's happening today that people don't want to recognize. And even like the Douglas Kelly, the psychiatrist that went on to, write a book, and he was the one that with the relationship with Goering went on to say, they're not unique. This can happen. And people let it happen. And people don't want to recognize when it's happening. And he's saying this in the 50s. He committed suicide in 1958 because he felt like he's not being heard. And I feel like it's happening right before our eyes right now.
Yeah, it is. That's interesting. I mean, when they close it out and he does that radio spot and he kind of loses his cool there for a minute trying to draw the comparison. He's on a book tour, but his book tanks because he's drawing. People don't want to take a look at themselves.
No.
That's a very hard and a very spiritual process where, Sigmund Freud got into it. Carl Jung got into it, but it's about self-actualization. Mm-hmm. And you can't get into the process of self-actualization on an individual basis until you take a really good look at yourself. The mistakes you made, not as a result of any kind of environmental influence or parental influence or genetic influence, just the accountability of the mistakes you made. Mm-hmm. That is, in psychology, that happens on an individual basis, but that also would have to play out on a societal level as a society.
Yeah.
Any society is also an organism. Mm-hmm. So it's going to have behavioral patterns
similarities to that of any living organism. And so, and in order for any kind of organism, an intelligent organism to evolve, in this case, the human species, has to go through a process of self-evaluation or, self-reflection. Which in a lot of ways, we can, there's a discussion to be had on whether or not America's doing that.
That was going to be my next question, because we've seen Germany, obviously we've passed it. We've gone through all these trials. They're a new country now. They don't deny any of this happened. I think, Germans I've talked to, it's an unfortunate time in their history, and it's something they absolutely don't want to repeat. And so that's how they look at it, as, we learned from this. We don't want this to happen. I don't think America is ready to do that with its own history, with slavery, with civil rights, with any of how we've gone about a lot of our internal business with our own citizens. I mean, it's happening right now with our own citizens, to do that self-actualization.
Yeah, I don't know how far America is away from that. There could be a paradigm shift where America makes a sharp right turn and then begins the process of self-reflection and say, hey, this is not the turn that we want to make as a nation, as a society. That's possible. And so, you want to be hopeful for that. Is it likely? I don't know what the probability is on that, or even how to measure that. But like you said, with the Germans, they have a different approach to that. And that can be, part of that reason could be that most European countries, well, all of them are older than America, even though they've gone through different forms of government, different types of governments and leaderships and everything. They've had a longer run at trial and error. So they are more evolved. I like to look at it like America is the equivalent of maybe a 22-year-old, where a European countries may be the equivalent of a 55 or a 60-year-old man, and America is the equivalent of like a 20 to a 22-year-old.
Yeah,
with that level of maturity. And recently it may even be a digression.
I feel like you're being generous with 22. I think we're around 15.
Yeah, I mean there's points when we could have arguably had a little more maturity than a 15-year-old. Arguably, I don't know.
I mean, I feel like we have gone in waves, but we're at the bottom of a swell right now.
Yeah. So
currently,
back to Nuremberg, I think it was a movie that had to be made.
Absolutely,
especially right now. So.
I feel this movie absolutely had to be made. I would love for it to be seen as waving huge red flags for the population. I don't feel that like the marketing engine was behind it, and I feel like a lot of that has to do with how controversial the Israeli situation has been, that it's not getting the proper attention that it should, because I think this is a very important film.
Yeah, I think so. It's got to be a separation between what it means to be Jewish and what Zionism is.
Yeah.
There has to be a distinct separation in that.
What did you think about how it was written? Like how they told the story, how they kind of drew out the relationship between Douglas Kelly and Goering, and then how it turned?
They wrote it in a way that was really believable. Whether or not it went down that way, I saw some moments in there where later on Douglas Kelly, at some point, he was asked to betray his trust or betray his oath with Goering, by his superiors. They asked him, okay, we want you to betray this, in effect, betray your oath.
Your doctor-patient.
Your doctor-patient oath, and you're going to work for us, and you're going to give us everything we need to get this guy. Now, I think if it went down that way in the writing, it was revealed later in the case, later in the movie, in the second act, in order to build tension and for different purposes of climax and things like that. But in real life, if that happened, he went into that situation with the intention of knowing that he was going to betray Goering.
Yeah, you're the U.S. military. You're informing, so right. That this.
Yeah, he didn't go in there, and it's possible because a doctor would, it's possible that as a doctor he would consider himself a doctor first and a soldier second. We don't know. He could have considered himself a soldier first and a doctor second. That depends on his particular mindset.
Yeah,
but I think it was created, and that's just my theory. I think it was creative licensing that he revealed later in the story that he wanted him to betray Goering. There's a couple moments in there, like when Colin Hanks came in, which he had a really small role in there.
But he's phenomenal at that role.
Yeah, he gets better and better.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was surprised that he has such a small role in this. I thought he had, because he has the ability to get real dark.
Yeah.
And so he comes in there and he betrays Kelly's trust at that moment in front of Goering. If that went down like that, I think that would have been creative licensing too. So, yeah. I mean, to your question, I think the writing, the way it was written out was perfect. It was a build up of tension. It starts off where, Goering has full confidence. He has the upper hand, and that the transparency in that relationship is revealed to us from the writers when Douglas Kelly says, well, when he's ready for me to know he can speak English, he'll tell me. And so that was almost like a fractal moment for the entire script, where it was this constant dance of revealing more and more until it gets to the point where at the very end of the movie, pretty much, is when Goering is no longer in control of everything.
Yeah, I think it, like you're saying, it was fractal, and you're like, each time you're saying how more and more cunning and manipulative and smart that Goering is, and it almost seems by sheer luck at the end that they were able to get him to admit to his crimes.
Yeah, it didn't seem like they were going to get him to admit to anything at all.
Oh yeah.
And actually they didn't. The only thing they had him on was one fucking string that they knew he would not deny Hitler.
Yeah, he could not.
He would not deny him because to him, and they don't go into this directly, but that relationship, they considered themselves monumental men. And so and he even reveals it at one point. He says in 15 years, this trial will be a joke. This will be a farce. This is not going to matter. I mean, was he right or wrong about that? That's another discussion. I mean, that's a legitimate argument that whether or not he was right or wrong about that. But what that did establish from a psychological point of view, that Nazi movement and Hitler was more important to his legacy than his actual life. So he would not have denied that relationship with Hitler to save his life. Because that means although he saved his life, he would have killed his legacy and he would have lived out his life as a nobody.
Yeah.
You separated yourself, whether from our lens, this was one of the most monstrous
monstrous moments in human history, you can argue that from one particular lens, but from their lens, it was a different moment in time. Mm-hmm. And so he was not going to kill that connection to that legacy. And they had him on that.
Yeah. And even like recognizing that him taking the stand, anything he has to say is propaganda for those that are still Nazis and still wanting to try and bring it forth, even though Germany has been defeated. It's kind of like, I would equate it to the South and, you know, the rebel cause that, you know, that lost cause that they still try and say was the South, that lost cause. They romanticize it so they can keep those beliefs alive. And in that, you lose some really important legacies because that one, the lost cause, you know,
you're
narrative.
Talking like the American South, the antebellum South.
Yes.
And how they try to hold on to the Confederate movement. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean it's the same thing. It's the same energy.
Yeah, and I feel in Europe they did a much better job of containing that and defeating it and moving on. Like Germany's, you know, they've recognized, you know, the atrocities and learned from it and don't want to repeat it, whereas we haven't learned that lesson yet.
I don't think it's that we haven't learned that lesson, but yet I think they understand the lesson. But you understand how power works. The people that are holding on to that dream are considered a particular voting bloc. Mm-hmm. And so if you know what strings pull their hearts, you allow them to, you know, to wallow in that that moment in time that, you know, with the South failed, this Confederate moment, it wasn't about slaves. It was about, you know, they can tell themselves whatever they want to tell them, but as a power structure, they don't completely destroy that the way Germany disconnected themselves from that Nazi movement. Mm-hmm. America doesn't disconnect themselves from that Confederate movement because it allows a certain type of control over that demographic and a way to pull and play against them. This is a part of the political landscape that Germany may have evolved out of. Mm-hmm. That's why, you know what I'm saying, it's European nations are a little older and a little more political savvy at certain things than what America would be. We just haven't had enough skin in the game long enough to evolve out of certain political elementary tactics. Like, you know, nations like Rome and Greece, these guys, their plebeian class had a different type of self-awareness about the role they played and the importance of that role in the social structure or the social pyramid. Americans are, for the most part, being duped. There's a lot of hoodwinking going on. There's a lot of, you know, they're being duped for the most part. And it's easy to dupe somebody or hoodwink somebody that wants to be hoodwinked.
Right.
You know?
Is there anything that you would have liked them to go into more depth on in the script or in the story?
That's a good question. I think that it's so much to unpack in that. I would have liked to see a couple of scenes with Russell Crowe, you know, doing a little more to show his commitment to that Nazi movement, to show a little more of him being a Nazi, taking a lot more pride in him being a Nazi, because the bigger they are, the harder they fall. So if they had have had a scene in there where he's showing a little more connection to it, or a little more pride in what that movement was about at that moment, when he had to choose between denouncing Hitler or saving his own life, it would have had a much greater impact.
Well, I think one thing that he did in real life and they showed in the movie is the fact that he was wearing his uniform the entire time. All the other people that they arrested, even if they were in SS, whatever, Gestapo, whatever, they weren't wearing their uniform. They were wearing a suit or whatever clothes they had. But Goering would wear his uniform. He never dropped that.
Yeah, and so the little moment of magic where he had abracadabra and his cyanide appeared, that's movie magic. The reality of it is that somebody may have slipped him that cyanide pill, because I don't think he would have had it on him the whole time. It was Nuremberg. You had some generals there that were being very thorough in that process of housing them and making sure that suicide was not an option. Yeah. So the fact that, and the fact that he had that the cyanide pill speaks to an illusion that he had support that we don't know about. Yeah. Because someone had to give him that pill. Someone had to give him the cyanide to save him the dignity of being hung, and save him the dignity of being out there and urinating himself like that. There was somebody that was had access to him that was very silent in their allegiance to that movement, because they gave him that pill. And it could have been more of a direct thing that maybe they gave him the pill to save him his dignities. Maybe it was an intentional thing. Regardless, there was a moment in history where they sent the Jews away on cruise ships and they were turned back. Yeah. So it's really hard for anybody to say that there's not some degree of complicity in the entire tragedy.
Yeah. I think that was one thing that I think I would have liked to have seen more of, was a little more in-depth explanation on getting these trials put together. Like, I think they go into it as much as they can with the time, because I know the importance is Goering and his relationship with the psychiatrist, but the monumental task of getting these trials even together while they have the leadership to prosecute, the fact that he went to the Pope to get, buy-in to have the trials, and like you said, the culpability, like he had to basically blackmail the Pope to agree to this, because they had signed off. They were the very first entity to recognize the new German state under Hitler.
Well, I mean, not only that, when the shit hit the fan, and a lot of the officers were trying to get out of Germany, they did that by way of Italy, and to get to Argentina. When they made their final stop in Argentina, all these different places where they were going through, the first stop was through Rome. The first stop was through Italy. So, I mean, to the level of complicity that Rome had played in the Nazi movement, we don't know. I mean, there's a discussion to be had. I mean, Mussolini and Hitler was play cousins. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. They was besties. If they had cell phones, they'd have been texting each other all night.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, literally, they would have been texting each other all night. They looked up to each other in different ways. It was a fascist movement, and they were feeding off each other. They was brothers in arms. Yeah. And Mussolini, El Duce, was Italian. So, I mean, it's a whole lot to unpack, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because even the United States, they don't want to have a trial. They just want to execute them. But you have a judge. It's like, I want to, but we need to have the law. It needs to be sanctioned by everyone. We can't just, arbitrarily say like, well, they lost, they need to be executed. Like, we need to have a precedent. Otherwise, this will happen again. And it's whoever wins writes the history and decides who's right and wrong and who's really doing something. If you don't have the Nuremberg trials, you have the Wild West worldwide when there's conflict.
So what's the final verdict? We give it between 1 and 3 stars, and you can give it between 1 and 3 stars. How many stars do you give it?
Oh, I give it 3 stars. I think it's phenomenal.
Okay.
I think it's important.
All right, yeah. I think I'm kind of torn between 2.5 and 3 stars. I would have. What was the doctor's name again?
Douglas Kelly.
Douglas Kelly. No, not the doctor. The actor.
Oh, Rami Malek.
Rami Malek. I mean, he's a good actor. I would have liked to see a little more from him in the scenes between him and Russell Crowe. At some point, he did bring the passion overall, but he was in those scenes where he was acting like a double agent. I lost a little bit of believability in it. So I'm gonna give it 2.5 stars. So that's 3 and 2.5. So he's got 5.5 stars. 5.5 stars out of 6. That's not bad.
Yeah.
But I definitely recommend everybody go see this one, or rent it or buy it or whatever it is you do.